Men's fashion has a problem most shoppers never notice. The price tag rarely matches the product. Some brands sell weak construction wrapped in prestige. Others hide enormous margins behind logos and marketing. And the worst offenders rely on buyers who never check what they're actually paying for. This video breaks down the 7 men's brands that survive on that ignorance. Not because the materials are exceptional, not because the craftsmanship is rare, but because the markup depends on reputation, not reality. The countdown starts at number 7. And the first brand on this list proves how expensive a familiar name can be. 7. H&M and all fast fashion menswear equivalents. Walk into an H&M store, and the men's section feels like a constant reset. New basics, new colors, new drops, all priced to disappear quickly. The appeal is immediate, but the economics behind those pieces tell a different story. A tee that sells for $15 to $30 often costs only a few dollars to produce in factories across Bangladesh and Vietnam. The company's financial reports show gross margins regularly above 50%, which means most of the price supports the pace of the system rather than the garment itself. The fabrics explain why the clothing turns over so quickly. Low GSM cotton is common because it's inexpensive and easy to finish for display. Loosely spun yarns create a soft first impression, but lose structure after a handful of washes. Elastane blends add stretch, yet the fibers fatigue early and leave the shirt sagging. Even polyester pieces, which should offer resilience, rely on thin filaments that peel sooner than expected. These materials perform well for a moment and then decline fast under normal wear. Construction follows the same priorities. Narrow seams, light reinforcement, and minimal finishing keep production fast. Hems curl, collars soften, and stitching loosens earlier than most buyers anticipate. None of this is incidental. The garments are built to move through the wardrobe quickly, not to endure repeated use. A tee that lasts only a dozen wears sends the customer back for another, and the cycle sustains itself. Pricing reinforces that cycle. The low upfront cost creates the impression of value, but the short lifespan erodes the savings. A shirt that needs replacing every few months becomes more expensive than a sturdier alternative over time. Sustainability messaging complicates the picture further. Recycled fibers and conscious labels appear across the store, yet the majority of the line still relies on the same low-density fabrics and rapid turnover construction. The behavior of the clothing hasn't changed. It stretches, fades, twists, and thins out long before the price would imply. What H&M offers is speed, a constant refresh of basics that look appealing at purchase and decline quickly afterward. For shoppers who measure value by longevity rather than novelty, the economics shift the moment the fabric begins to break down. 6. Zara. Zara's menswear makes the most sense when you look at the tempo behind it. The brand releases new styles every few weeks, and that speed shapes the garments long before they reach the store. A blazer priced between $90 and $150 often starts with a bill of materials in the low double digits. The rest of the price supports the machinery required to keep ideas moving from sketch to shelf at a pace few competitors attempt. The clothing reflects that urgency more than any long-term design intent. The materials show how the system operates. Lightweight synthetics dominate the blazer range because they press cleanly and handle rapid production well. Interlinings are thin, fusing varies across batches, and panels are assembled with minimal internal structure. Shirts follow a similar pattern. Low-density cotton is common, and the yarn twist is loose enough to lose definition after a few washes. Even the denim, which should offer stability, uses blends that relax faster than expected. These fabrics are chosen for speed and appearance, not endurance. Construction choices track the same priorities. Seams are narrow, button attachments are light, and reinforcement is limited. The garments hold their shape briefly, then begin to show the effects of the shortcuts. Blazers soften, shirts skew, and trousers fade unevenly. These outcomes aren't anomalies. They're consistent with a system optimized for rapid turnover rather than longevity. Pricing adds another dimension. Zara positions itself as a step above traditional fast fashion, but the underlying build remains closer to the budget tier. Inditex, the parent company, reports gross margins that regularly exceed 50%, which means a significant portion of the price supports the pace of production rather than the garment itself. The clothing is framed as contemporary menswear, yet the construction rarely aligns with that positioning. Scarcity amplifies the perception of quality. Limited batches and quick sellouts create urgency, encouraging shoppers to buy before examining the details. The pieces feel current because they're engineered to match trends, not to withstand extended wear. Once the initial appeal fades, the structural compromises become clear. Zara delivers trend accuracy and constant novelty, but the garments are not built for long service. The speed that defines the brand also defines the lifespan of the clothing. 5. Banana Republic. Banana Republic's men's line presents itself as a step up within the Gap & Course family, but the materials behind many pieces don't fully support that positioning. A $90 button-down often shares the same fabric weight and yarn quality as shirts sold for far less under the same corporate umbrella. The distinction shows up in presentation and pricing rather than in the weave. Financial filings confirm that margins sit close to those of the lower-priced brands in the portfolio, which means the premium is accounted for before the garment is made. The materials show how the line has shifted. Cotton shirts frequently use lighter yarns that feel smooth at first, but crease easily and lose structure after a few washes. Chinos that once held up well now rely on blends that show abrasion early, especially at the pockets and knees. Sweaters follow a similar trajectory. The wool blends are soft initially, but thin out faster than expected, leaving elbows and cuffs worn down before the season ends. These changes are subtle enough to pass unnoticed in the store, but become clear with consistent wear. Construction choices track the same direction. Narrow seams, light interlinings, and minimal reinforcement keep production efficient but reduce durability. Jackets use synthetic linings that fray at friction points. Hardware on outerwear loosens or oxidizes sooner than it should. None of these issues are dramatic on their own, yet together they shorten the lifespan of the clothing. The pieces present well, but don't consistently hold up under regular use. Pricing relies on the assumption that shoppers won't compare the materials directly to lower-priced alternatives. Tailored silhouettes, polished photography, and seasonal campaigns frame the line as contemporary menswear, but the underlying build doesn't always match that impression. Shirts soften, sweaters pill, and chinos lose color unevenly, revealing the limits of the construction. Customer feedback has been steady for years. The clothing makes a strong first impression and then settles into performance closer to mid-priced basics. Banana Republic offers a refined presentation, but the durability behind it varies more than the branding suggests. 4. Lacoste. Lacoste's men's polos carry a reputation that comes from a single detail: the small embroidered crocodile. The emblem signals heritage and familiarity, and the price reflects that recognition more than the construction beneath it. A polo priced between $70 and $90 often costs only a fraction of that to produce. Industry estimates place manufacturing costs between $4 and $14, depending on the facility. The difference is absorbed long before the fabric is cut. The production network behind the polos explains why the experience varies so widely. Lacoste manufactures across multiple countries, each with its own standards for yarn density, knitting precision, and finishing. Two shirts bought on the same day can behave nothing alike. One may hold its shape for months, while another begins to stretch or fade after a few washes. The consistency of the logo contrasts with the inconsistency of the garment. Fabric choices add another layer of unpredictability. The cotton used in the classic polo is typically mid-weight, but the yarn twist shifts from batch to batch. Some shirts maintain structure, while others sag at the hem or lose definition at the collar. Pilling is a recurring complaint, especially along the sides and under the arms. The collar, which should anchor the garment, often curls or collapses early. These issues appear frequently in customer reviews and independent evaluations. Construction details follow the same pattern. Seams are narrow, reinforcement is limited, and the placket relies on lightweight interfacing that fatigues quickly. Buttons are attached with stitching that loosens sooner than expected. None of these decisions align with the price point. They reflect a production model optimized for efficiency rather than durability. The brand's presentation smooths over these inconsistencies. Lacoste leans on its long association with tennis, leisure wear, and understated elegance. The polos are framed as timeless staples, but the build quality varies more than the marketing suggests. The emblem carries a level of authority the garment doesn't always match. The result is a product defined more by recognition than by construction. The crocodile remains iconic, but the shirts beneath it deliver performance that shifts from batch to batch. leaving buyers with a garment whose longevity depends as much on where it was made as on how it's worn. 3. Diesel. Diesel's reputation leans heavily on the idea of rugged Italian denim, but the production map tells a different story. Only a small portion of the men's line is made in Italy. Most pairs come from factories in Tunisia and Turkey, where labor costs are lower and turnaround times are faster. A pair of jeans priced between $120 and $200 often begins with a manufacturing cost between $6 and $30. The premium attached to the brand is accounted for long before the fabric reaches the sewing floor. The denim itself shows how the priorities have shifted. Many pairs use mid-weight cotton blends that feel substantial at first but soften quickly with repeated wear. Stretch fibers are added for comfort, yet they fatigue early and leave the jeans sagging at the knees and seat. Diesel's washes, often marketed as signature treatments, add only a small amount to the production cost. Most are automated processes designed for speed rather than craftsmanship. The result is denim that presents well initially, but loses structure sooner than expected. Diesel also experiments heavily with surface treatments and distressing, which creates visual impact but accelerates wear. Sanding, whiskering, and enzyme washes weaken the yarns long before the jeans reach the customer. These effects look intentional on day one, yet they reduce the fabric's ability to withstand friction, laundering, and repeated movement. Construction details follow the same trajectory. Seams are narrow, stress points receive limited reinforcement, and rivets are lighter than they appear. Pocket bags use thin cotton that wears through early, especially with regular use. These decisions keep production efficient but reduce durability. The jeans don't consistently deliver the resilience implied by the branding. The brand's identity shapes how the product is perceived. Diesel leans on themes of rebellion, individuality, and craftsmanship, creating an expectation of toughness that the garments don't always meet. The marketing frames the jeans as distinctive pieces with character, but the underlying materials and construction don't consistently support that narrative. Once the jeans are worn regularly, the limits of the build become clear. The secondary market highlights the pattern. Diesel jeans lose value quickly because the construction doesn't justify the original price. Fading becomes uneven, stretch fibers lose tension, and hardware shows wear earlier than expected. The jeans maintain a strong aesthetic, but the durability behind that look varies more than the price suggests. 2. Ralph Lauren, especially polo and licensed lines. Ralph Lauren's menswear covers an unusually wide range of price points, from entry-level polos to four-figure purple label pieces. That breadth creates a level of variation that isn't obvious when looking at the line as a whole. The company's gross margin for fiscal year 2025 sits at 68.6%, a figure that shows how much of the price is accounted for before materials or construction enter the picture. The brand's identity carries more weight than the components of many of its garments. The polo range illustrates how this plays out. Production spans multiple countries, each with its own approach to yarn density, finishing, and quality control. A $90 polo may use mid-weight cotton, but the yarn twist and finishing vary from batch to batch. Some shirts keep their shape for a reasonable period, while others stretch or fade early. Collars rely on lightweight interlinings that soften quickly, and the differences between factories become clear once the garment is worn regularly. The price remains stable, but the performance does not. The higher tiers follow a similar pattern, though the stakes are higher. Purple label pieces carry price tags that reach into the hundreds or thousands, yet the bill of materials is far lower. Industry estimates suggest that a $1,000 cashmere sweater may cost between $150 and $200 to produce. The rest supports branding, licensing, and the infrastructure required to maintain a luxury image. Even when the fabrics are objectively better, the markup expands far beyond the improvement in construction. Licensing adds another layer of complexity. Many lower-tier Ralph Lauren products are manufactured by third-party companies that pay royalties to use the name. Those royalties raise the retail price without improving the garment. Two items with the same logo can behave entirely differently depending on where they were made and which partner produced them. The brand's presentation creates a sense of cohesion that the garments themselves don't always share. Polished photography, coordinated color stories, and a tightly controlled aesthetic make the line appear unified. Once the clothing enters regular wear, the differences become more visible. Shirts lose structure, sweaters pill, and polos fade sooner than the price implies. Ralph Lauren offers a powerful identity, but the construction behind it varies more than most buyers expect. The logo is consistent. The workmanship behind it is not. 1. Hugo Boss. Hugo Boss suits project a clean, modern silhouette, but the internal build tells a different story. Most of the men's line relies on fused inner lining, a method that bonds the outer fabric to an adhesive layer instead of using canvas. This approach keeps production predictable and fast, yet it limits how the jacket develops over time. A suit priced between $500 and $800 is marketed as refined tailoring, but the structure underneath is closer to mass-market construction. The company's 62.4% gross margin in late 2024 reflects how much of the price is accounted for before the garment is assembled. Fusing shapes the way these suits age. Because the adhesive fixes the chest and lapels into a permanent form, the jacket can't adapt to the wearer. Heat, moisture, and dry cleaning gradually weaken the glue, leading to bubbling and rippling across the front panels. These failures are well documented in teardown analyses and consumer reports. Once the adhesive begins to separate, restoring the jacket requires replacing major sections of the structure, a repair that often exceeds the value of the suit. Fabric choices compound the issue. Lightweight wool blends are common because they press cleanly and maintain a crisp look on display. Some lines incorporate synthetics to reduce wrinkling, but those blends limit breathability and resilience. Polyester linings trap heat and wear thin at friction points. Seams are narrow, reinforcement is minimal, and internal components are simplified to maintain speed across the supply chain. These decisions keep production efficient but shorten the lifespan of the garment. Manufacturing adds another variable. Much of the production is outsourced to factories across Eastern Europe and Asia, each with different levels of oversight. Two suits with identical price tags can behave very differently depending on where they were made. The brand styling, sharp shoulders, clean lines, and controlled presentation creates the impression of precision, but the construction underneath doesn't consistently support that image. The secondary market makes the pattern clear. Hugo Boss suits lose value quickly because the materials and structure don't justify the original price. Once the fusing begins to fail, the jacket's lifespan contracts sharply. The suit delivers a sleek silhouette at purchase, but the engineering behind it rarely matches the expectations set by the tag. Across all 7 brands, the pattern is the same. The story is polished, the construction is not. The labels change, the marketing changes, but the materials and engineering rarely match the price. If you want clothing that lasts, the logo won't tell you anything. The fabric will. The stitching will. The structure will. Once you start looking at those details, the picture gets clearer, and the decision gets easier.